Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, April 24th, and this is the ENC, Education, Culture, and Health and Human Services Joint Committee Work Session on the FY24 operating budget. We're taking up several items this morning, including our operating budget on the Newcomers Initiative, Early Care and Education, NDA, Early Childhood Services, Child Care Subsidies, the Opportunity Alliance, Head Start and Pre-Kindergarten, Linkages to Learning, School Health Services, High School Wellness Centers, and our high school cluster projects and partnerships. That'll be our first item. And I see we have our great team, council staff and departmental staff in front of us today, so thank you. Just want to tee it up. This is one of the, and I'll turn to my co-chair, Councilmember Albanaz, Chair Albanaz. This is an important discussion, and one of the most important we'll have. How are we taking care of our early learners, our newcomers? We just had a session in the Education and Culture last week, and first budget session, and we found out that more than 2,000 students have joined our schools since the year started. Many of those were newcomers. We know that number is continuing to rise. And then we always have, I have one at home, a 4-year-old waiting in the wings to enter our system. And we want to make sure that they're prepared and have everything that they need as we continue to grow our availability of Head Start, pre-kindergarten, child care services. So I know there's a lot of work being done in this area. The physical and mental health of our students is paramount as we deal with this mental health crisis. So I thank you for all the work that's being done across all these areas, our wellness center expansion, everything. So looking forward to getting into it with each of you. And making sure that you have the resources you need to continue this important work at a critical time. And all the partners in the audience as well, thank you for all your work. Turn it over to my co-chair, and then I'll go to Ms. Yao.
Thank you, Chair Chawanda. That was well said. And as always, we just want to acknowledge the staff that are on the front lines doing this extraordinary work under very difficult circumstances, to say the least. And so we continue to appreciate all of everyone's efforts to address these especially important needs. So look forward to getting into the discussion. And with that, I yield back to Chair Chawanda.
Thank you, Councilor Albanaz. Thank you, Councilor Albanaz. Ms. Yao, okay, didn't know who we were going to. Ms. Yao, you'll kick us off. Thank you. Let's go through the packet.
Yep.
And then as we're going, if everyone, as you speak, just please introduce yourself the first time. Go ahead.
Good morning. As the chair of ENC had mentioned, we're going to be going through a number of items that are related to the collaboration between HHS and MCPS. There are a number of folks listed on the first page of your packet. At the table we have executive staff, but we also have a number of folks in the audience, MCPS, as well as some other folks like Children's Opportunity Alliance represented in case there are questions from the Joint Committee. On the second page of your packet is a table that lists council staff's initial priority recommendations for tax-supported additions consistent with the council president's request of how we're reviewing the budget. And the first item up, though, is Newcomers Bienvenidos Initiative, which Ms. Clemens will be presenting on.
Okay, good morning. So our first item is the Newcomers Bienvenidos Initiative, excuse me. This is the county's effort to support the unaccompanied minor, unaccompanied and asylum-seeking children, youth, and families arriving from the southern border to Montgomery County. Between 2014 to 2022, Montgomery County was the 11th highest receiving county in the nation of unaccompanied minors seeking to unify with families or sponsors. So the Bienvenidos initiative has been in place since FY21. It was approved under a special appropriation in the fall of that year. And since that time, the program has been supported with one-time funding year after year after year. As of February of FY23, the program has served over 4,000 households and over 8,000 individuals. Now, the Newcomers program transitioned a little bit in April of 2022 to help assist the migrants arriving from the southern border that were being bused from Texas and Arizona. So, beginning in April 2022, the county coordinated with SAMU First Response to provide centralized respite respite support that included services like food, space to sleep for 3 to 5 nights, clothing, hygiene items, and support for travel arrangements. When the county started assisting with those efforts in DC, there was initially support from the Newcomers Project in terms of funding, but now that funding is totally supported through FEMA dollars by SAMU. So the relationship that the county has with the program is maintaining an agreement with DGS to utilize one of the Montgomery County facilities as a respite center. So in FY23, the budget was 4.4. There was a special appropriation for 1.5 million, and that brought the total funding for the Newcomers Initiative in FY23 to $6 million. The executive recommended budget for FY24 is 6.4 million and also includes 14 FTEs. Only 8 of these FTEs are quote unquote new, and FY24, due to the one-time funding, they have been, each year they show up in the budget, and they are term positions solely funded by this this one-time funding. So, and for FY24, there are 8 new staff that will be added. 6 staff are transitioning from a contract to merit. There is 1 manager 3 position and 1 program manager 1 position. And the new funds are supporting case management, mental health services. A new initiative is the Street Outreach Network. So working with CEF, the program will contract with nonprofits to provide cultural and linguistically appropriate street outreach services. And then also there's an expansion of services at the Wellness Center. So the locations are Northwood, Watkins Mills, Seneca Valley, Gaithersburg, Wheaton High School, and Kennedy High School. Council staff recommendation is to support the 6.4 million recommended by the executive, and we do recommend that this funding be placed as high priority. And also, we are recommending that there is a strategy over in developing a strategy over the next coming months to make this a sustainable program model and level funding going forward. So because this is the 4th year of one-time funding. So.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens and Ms. Yao. And I'm going to turn to my co-chair. If colleagues want to speak, just please text me since we've got 5 today. And I don't miss anyone's order. And so just to be clear on the recommendation is high priority for the 6.4 million, which is just about a $328,000 increase from last year. And I just say where I am, I think that's totally appropriate, and obviously want to give the opportunity. I'm going to turn to co-chair because I'm sure he'll ask a question that will give you then the opportunity to talk about the initiative and how this is going and how you're going to use the resources. So I'll turn to co-chair Albernas.
Thank you, Chair Giwando. This remains something that I'm particularly proud of, that our community leaned in and once again showed our values as a welcoming community, but doing more so in just words but in actions. And we were the first jurisdiction to step up when the migrant buses began to arrive in a coordinated fashion, and fortunately other districts have since come into the fray. But I once again want to really thank HHS, SAMU, all the faith-based organizations, nonprofit providers that stepped up as volunteers initially. And the good news, we had an infrastructure in place that we were able to expand upon. The Biden administration has actually spoken about Montgomery County's efforts to other jurisdictions as a model, because we recognize that it's not just our moral responsibility to support the most vulnerable families as they come through, in many cases not staying here but passing through, because we want to get to them before they are in crisis. And it makes a lot of walking around sense for us to be able to do that. So this has been a critically and important initiative for so many different reasons. But I did have a couple of questions. Ms. Treadvance, I think you may be in the best position to respond to this for now as the point person, but what is the current situation? I know as recently as 3 months ago, the buses were consistently arriving still on a weekly basis, but where are we now, and what are we seeing on the ground?
Good morning, everyone. So Dira Treadvance, for the record, Chief of Children, Youth, and Family Services, that gets the pleasure and the honor to house this initiative. So when it comes to immigration, one of the things that we have learned very quickly, which we have known, is that things are always in flux. So we go through periods. As you saw, the model started off with serving a specific population within the immigration sphere, and come April, it completely pivoted to something else. So while we have seen a decrease in some of the buses, we still anticipate that there's still going to be a need, because again, it continues to fluctuate up and down in terms of need. So what we are focusing internally is we are trying to revamp our model to create a model that is just a little bit more sustainable, that will allow us that in the future, if there were to be shifts in the immigration landscape, that we're still able to expeditiously respond without niching down on a specific subset of the immigrant population. So we're really trying to, as we're stepping up to respond in moments of crisis, we're also thinking about long term, how could we create something that is sustainable and that would allow the county to continue to remain in a posture of being a welcoming county and truly dismantling anti-immigrant rhetoric.
You're right. It's hard to predict. Oftentimes, a policy decision made at the federal level has a direct impact on what we do or don't do. And we're now receiving people from around the world.
Yes.
It's not just Central and South America because of the global unrest in Europe and in other parts of Africa. We're starting to see those families come here as well. So could you also talk a little bit about an update on the regional approach? I know we are working more closely than we have since the beginning of this most recent wave with other jurisdictions, and if you could just describe what that looks like.
Absolutely. So I will actually pivot to Ms. Otero, since the county executives team has been leading those conversations at the jurisdictional level.
Great, thank you very much. Bibi Otero, Special Assistant to County Executive Mark Eldridge. And I apologize, the pollen has my throat. At a regional level, I think from day one, we started working very closely with folks especially in the District of Columbia, and as you well know, we've worked with COG and had those conversations and really briefed and kept everybody up to date in terms of what was going on. I think our closest partner is the District of Columbia. They have the buses arrive in the District of Columbia, and so the work that we've done with SAMU has been to collaborate with DC to make sure that we are making room in the respite center for those families that need those spaces. And there's been a lot of back and forth between them, and the district is beginning to open up their own welcome centers and respite center and so on. And wherever possible, we're trying to keep a similar model, if not the same model, so that we don't have folks having to make decisions, I'd rather go here or there. We've also worked closely with FEMA, with the United Way that serves as the fiscal agent for the FEMA dollars, and obviously with SAMU at the table. So there's been a lot of collaboration across the board in that sense. So we have partnership meetings with the nonprofits and the regional representatives on a bi-weekly basis to just update it. As Dira said, it's fluid, so we're constantly in a shifting. And I think what's been really key about this is that we have been able to pivot as things have changed. There was a period of time where we stopped getting buses from Texas. We were getting more buses from Arizona. There's more coordination with Arizona. There's less coordination with Texas. So it's very fluid, and as many partners as possible so that we can get as much information as possible. The one thing I will say is Title 42 will end May 11th, and that will create another shift because families will begin to come in. We don't know exactly how the federal government will manage it. The word is that they will only let families in who have gone through an asylum hearing in other countries, but we don't know yet what that impact will be. The second is that we're seeing more families coming in that aren't necessarily coming in through the buses, and so that's another shift from where we were several months ago. And I've got some numbers if you want to have some idea of the numbers that we've seen up to date through the respite center and so on. But I do want to highlight, I think what Councilmember Alvarnosa said, and that is that I think the fact that we stepped up when we did and the way we did, I think has made it so that we could direct families more easily and more quickly to their final destination.
I appreciate that. And then just final thought for now, the coordination between HHS and MCPS has been critical to help these families transition all the way through. And I know we're processing a lot of the families and helping them through Rocking Horse. And so that obviously needs to continue. But I concur with Chair Jawando's feeling of agreeing with the staff recommendation and the county executive's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarez. I'll turn to my colleagues in one moment. I just want to thank you for lifting up the work at COG, and maybe it might be time for another update. Now that I'm chair of Region 4, I know we have new people involved, a lot of new members, and because this issue, maybe we'll wait till Title 42 changes, but I think it would be we want to make sure we keep, a lot of times you have to let people know what has happened and what the plan is and get them involved. So really appreciate the work that you all are doing there. And you, Ms. Trevance, thank you for all the work. And all the partners. SAMU has been great. I've been there when they met it's just an amazing, amazing, important work. Councilmember Lukey and then Councilmember Sales.
Thank you. So I just want to say this. I do support the staff recommendations to place this on the high priority list, but I had a couple of questions that I thought were important and wanted to know, of course, appreciating that the immigration landscape is ever shifting and the processes are ever shifting. What is being done, or is it being done by a different entity, but since HHS obviously has a lot of the coordinating authority and power and initial connection with folks, what's being done to help facilitate legal processes for folks so that they're getting connected to that aspect of their needs when they're arriving or shortly thereafter after they've been, had an opportunity to be stabilized a little bit, so that they're not feeling so in limbo, if from a legal perspective. Anybody?
Let me start, and we do have funding for legal services. We've consolidated all of that in the Office of Partnership Services. So under Diane's shop, that's where all the legal services are. One of the things that SAMU does from the very beginning, as soon as folks arrive at the respite center, is provide a host of trainings, even from day one, for families. And that includes guidance around legal services and connecting to legal service from the very beginning. We know that that is the most critical step because there's a misconception that folks arrive here if they've gone through the border and have an asylum number and an A number. Right. There's a misconception that they are already able to receive services and so on, and that's not correct. As you know, they have to first go to the court hearing, which is given to them at the border, and so it's really important to get the families and the individuals to quickly begin to move in towards their asylum date, and deal with the legal aspects of this. So whether it's changing where their hearing is, and those sort of things. So that's very early in the orientation, I would say, as they arrive to the to the respite center. For those who remain in the county, remember that most of the folks that come to the respite center do not remain in the county. They are. This is the great work that SAMU has done, is to help folks move to their final destination. For those who stay, then they are attached to legal services.
Okay, thank you. And has the process improved or gotten? I know, obviously COVID and things created a lot of hiccups in all manner of legal processes of all kinds. And so as we stand currently with respect to these proceedings, have things started to level? No, it's still backlogged.
It's very backlogged. There are folks who won't see an appointment for 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
My other question is, and I know this was brought up as you presented everything, but obviously when someone sees a budget item that says it's one-time funding, but this will be the 4th year, the question becomes, why hasn't that housekeeping issue been corrected prior to now? And so I wanted to know why it keeps coming up as a one-time funding thing when it's clearly not a one-time funding thing, and why that has not been addressed by either the county executive's office or the departments.
Deborah Lambert from the Office of Management and Budget. I think it's because of the shifts that we've been seeing in the nature of the program that I don't believe that the county executive was quite comfortable making it an ongoing program. But it's something we will look at again in the fiscal 25 budget development, and perhaps at that time it will be made permanent. We just don't know at this point.
Okay, yeah, to me, it seems, I'm not, if I'm appropriating something, it's not actually being done as one-time funding when we're on year 4. So it should be formalized into a program. The funding fluctuations may adjust year to year based on programmatic changes, just like any other program, but it really should never be classified as one-time funding when you're on year 4. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don't ask my questions. So no worries, because I too support this initiative, and just wanted to find out now. I guess we wouldn't know what FY25 projections would look like because of the constant year-over-year fluctuations.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So we'll begin working on the 25 budget in the fall, at which time we'll take a look at it again.
Okay.
If I also may add, what part of the last supplemental also allowed us to secure funding for a consultant who's well-versed in this arena and can help us build a more sustainable model over the long term. So after we work with a consultant and they're on board and we engage and have the proper conversations, we'll be able to have a clearer picture of a more sustainable model that will allow us to kind of pivot wherever the needs arise.
Okay. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you, Chair. My questions have actually been addressed as well, so I will just note that I concur with the staff recommendation and with my colleagues, and this is, pieces of this are certainly things that have come up not only as I was campaigning, but now through constituent work, and so I think that certainly that we have the support of the public leading into this as well. Thanks.
Right. So I think I'm hearing without objection, we will support council staff to place and the county executive's recommendation, place this as high priority on the reconciliation list. All right, we're going to move to our second item, and I'd ask if there's any shuffling. Does any shuffling need to happen yet? Not yet. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, good. So, if Ms. Yao, do you want to take us into the second item here, please?
Absolutely. The Joint Committee is going to be reviewing a number of items related to the delivery of early care and education in the county. Expanding access to high-quality early care and education has been a priority for the council for many, many years, but with recent developments with the early care and education NDA, activity at the state with the blueprint implementation, as well as increasing investment in the state scholarship subsidy programming. These kinds of efforts have really ramped up investment in early care and education for the county. So the first item for the committee's review is the Early Care and Education Non-Departmental Account, NDA. This NDA started as part of the ECEI initiative, with the goal of expanding the number of quality ECE seats in a mixed delivery system in the county, supporting child care providers, both family and center-based, increasing resources to providers and families, as well as increasing utilization of local child care subsidies. So there's a number of things that this initiative has been doing, and it's been very active in that space. The table on page 7 of your packet lists the budget amounts, the spend out amounts, and then the rollover amounts. The NDA operates a little bit differently than a lot of other departments in the county budget, in that amounts that are not expended in a given year roll over to the next year. And for fiscal year 24, the executive is recommending $11,178,526, which is an increase of $185,937 from the fiscal year 23 level. projected underspending, though, in fiscal year '23 is approximately 13.8 million. So the total amount that will be available in the NDA for fiscal year '24 is approximately 25 million. There are a number of there are several changes within the NDA.
Ms. Yao, before you do that, I just want to, can you stop?
Yeah,
Pause
sure.
for 1 second. I just want to, on the unspent amount, could you just explain, that's gone up every year, and I know we've changed since we started. This is one of the first things Councilmember Alvarez and I were a part of when Councilmember Navarro and County Executive kicked off this initiative. Can you just explain why that continues to rise and why it's such a high balance carried forward? Yeah.
Sure, I'll pick up on that also. It's primarily the pandemic. The expenditures as the NDA, the Early Childhood Initiative had a series, as you know, we had a plan and we had a series of activities, much of which was around access and affordability. During the pandemic, as you know, childcare was shut down, and we really shifted to sustainability and to trying to maintain the system of care within the county, and used much of the federal money. We put out about $20 million in grants, and mostly in grants to sustain child care centers as they were dealing with both being shut down and then trying to rev up and get the enrollment up and so on. And so part of the MDA monies were not spent for the kinds of activities that were originally planned. But what we were able to do was maintain a significant percentage of our child care organizations, our family child care providers as well as centers, to be able to reopen and re-enroll post closures of pandemic. I'm not sure we're totally over pandemic, but that's the short answer to why the dollars were not spent.
So you obviously anticipate this year being different.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Go ahead, and then we'll get into what you're planning for this year. Yeah, go ahead.
So in the NDA, there are several adjustments that are recommended. There's $2,838 for compensation adjustments. $183,099 are categorized as multi-program adjustments. And there's also the shift of operating expense to personnel costs to add 4 merit staff positions, and a reduction of 9.96 FTEs for the summer school wrap program that used one-time funding out of the NDA for fiscal year '23. Planned expenditures for the NDA are included at circles, I think, 30 to 32 of your packet, and council staff just highlighted some of the big ticket items on page 8 of your packet. They include CDFI development and implementation, WPA supplements the subsidy program, a subsidy seats pilot, WPA portal development, educational scholarships, family involvement centers, Quality Child Care Development Center, implementation of the Basics program, and community-based Head Start for children who are aging out of early Head Start. Again, Ms. Otero is here in case the Joint Committee has any questions about that, and Council staff recommends approval of the '24 budget for the CENDA.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. I'll turn first to Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you so much, Chair Giwando. So I just want to follow up, Ms. Ortero. I get, all of us do, within reason, that things shut down, so there wasn't expenditures that could necessarily be created. But we've been back up and running for over a year now, so not to the full extent, but the need has certainly grown. So if you could dig a little deeper in terms of what you're seeing, and then describe what's being done to make sure that we don't have this carryover moving forward, because right now we're looking for every penny and every cushion. And needless to say, we need to keep the momentum going in this space in particular, because it's so key to everything else that we are working on, and we want to follow through with the strategic plan that was laid out. But we also want to make sure that we are being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and want to let folks know this money there won't be a surplus, or won't nearly be as much moving forward. Because you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
We've got to connect the dots here. There's a lot of need. We hear about it every day. And it's sad when there are resources available and they're not being utilized.
So the intent of the Early Childhood Initiative from the very beginning, as you would recall, which was a collaboration with MCPS, the council, and the executive, was to really increase affordability, access, the sustainability of the childcare community, and to grow the number expand the number of seats available for early care and education. What we have put into this budget is hopefully about 1,000 additional seats through both the subsidy as well as what is called the CDFI piece. So we need to support getting enrollment back up. The enrollment is still not at where it was pre-pandemic, and that is really both an attempt to make sure that families are getting access that they need, as well as child development centers having the children in their seats, because that's the only way they'll be able to sustain. And so a significant amount of these dollars are going into those two buckets in particular. We have a campaign, and we will continue to have a campaign to get parents to access the WPA or some sort of subsidy. Part of bringing up the subsidy to 450% of poverty, aligned with the state, is also trying to get a larger number of families who will have access to early care and education, and that will be access from a financial perspective, because it's, as you know, childcare is extremely expensive. All our numbers tell us it's about $24,000 to $30,000 for an infant or a toddler, and so you can imagine what those numbers are. And it's the same in terms of sustaining family childcare, which we've had a constant drop in terms of family childcare providers, even though through the initiative we've increased the number of family childcare providers. We are going to look at to pilot some contracts, as opposed to doing individual vouchers to parents, to also do contracts with childcare centers to see if that gets money flowing out the door faster and provides better access for families. So that's part of what's in this significant investment around early care and education seats for families, and continuing to work with bringing more family childcare providers into the fold. So that's a significant part, and I think with the campaign that we have in place, and we'll continue to work, you'll see there's money in there for marketing, is to get the assistance from all walks of life to help us get families to access. That's also the portal piece, is also to create an easier access point for applications and so on for families. The other couple of pieces here is and this was delayed significantly by the pandemic, and in some ways it's a good timing. We need a supply and demand study, and we've already put the RFP out. It's out the door, so that we can better understand what the supply is now post-pandemic and what the demand is, and where in the county those are needed. So that's a really critical piece that, as I said, the RFP is out the door. And then the other is the cost of care study, and that is to understand better what it actually costs to provide the services in the county, so we can align all of those pieces and have the data that we currently don't have to make better decisions about where we need childcare and at what levels and at what costs. There are part of the other is the production of space takes time, and so this is the CDFI piece, which is to put money in a community development fund that has the expertise to support childcare centers who choose to expand, have the ability to expand either in their current location or new locations. And as you well know, any development project like that will take time. So you will see some of that not completed within the year, but we have to appropriate the dollars. So if somebody wants to open 2 new classrooms or 3 new classrooms, what will that take? So those are some of the pieces. We also have, as you know, the Wheaton project, which I think the RFP is, last I heard, is about out the door. That's another 80 seats. We have an organization up county that has now gotten a state bond, and we will be supporting and matching that state bond as we spoke, in order to create another 80 seats for transitioning children out of early Head Start to Head Start. So those are all the pieces that are in place. The NDA, the Early Childhood Initiative's primary focus is to get money to children, to families, and to providers as quickly as possible, and that's really been the primary criteria, and bringing all the agencies and departments together in the system to make that happen.
I appreciate that. So just 2 follow-up points quickly. The first is excited to hear about the data collection. Clearly, we need that sort of analysis. The coordination with the COA will be important, critical to making sure that we leverage that information as best as we can to be able to attract more funders, to be able to advocate more effectively at the state level. So, we'll hear more about how that connectivity is going shortly, but that will be important. I did have a follow-up question, though, and you mentioned it in your comments, but the other side of the coin here is the supply. And many organizations had to fold, during COVID. And of course, it was hard on a good day to be able to find workers in this space. Could you just at a higher level talk about what you're seeing, what we're feeling in terms of the current environment?
So I don't have the numbers of how many, the number of centers that actually closed down in the pandemic. I'm sure we can get some of those for you. A lot of that is in the states, as the state is the regulator and they have the license. So some folks, for example, may still be holding on to their license but not be opened. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know the exact numbers in that. I think the most significant issue right now that child development centers are and family child care homes are dealing with is staffing. The workforce, like with every other industry, is a difficult task, and we are, I would say, the single most critical issue across the country in child care right now is compensation. And so I forgot to say the third study is a compensation study that is included in here so that we can better understand where we are. As an example, the District of Columbia has passed a compensation piece of legislation, and it is now going to be paying teachers, educators in early care and education in parity with public education. That means if you have a bachelor's degree in early care and in early childhood in a child development center, you will get the same salary as a teacher in the public school system. So that is a huge challenge for us, because we run the risk of losing more teachers when in fact, because of the blueprint and certainly our needs in childcare, we need to be recruiting more. So we've included, as you can see in this budget, there's $500,000 which has been ongoing scholarships at MC for AA degrees, and $500,000 for scholarships at the bachelor's level, because one of the things that MCPS will I'm sure share this, is our ability to get credentialed teachers into those pre-K classrooms to meet the blueprint requirements. So we have both the challenges at the child development centers and the challenges in terms of the pre-K classrooms for the blueprint. In fact, we have lost a number of the pre-K classrooms in the community-based settings because they can't find the certified teachers as the blueprint requires. So that is a real urgency and a really critical piece of work for our child development centers, is getting the compensation piece. To your initial point, in terms of getting this data, I have shared with the COA the fact that we will be, each one of these consultants will need a local expert group, and that we will create a team that will work directly with the consultants around this issue. And absolutely the COA should be part of that team so that they can certainly be participate in how the data is gathered, what we look at in terms of these various studies, and then be able to utilize that data to move forward in their advocacy and their work. There is a fourth piece, which is a shared services structure, and that is really to look at supporting small family child care providers as well as small centers in cost savings. So those are the big four kind of infrastructural pieces that we've put together as part of the ECEI, which is what you've all mandated, is that how do we build the system and build an infrastructure? And that's what you're seeing in this budget.
Final thing, and you don't have to respond, but just to put in plug once again, space continues to be a huge issue as a barrier in addition to being able to find staff. And we've had some robust conversations in joint committee about better utilizing county facilities for early childhood and education. We're going to have some challenging conversations for some upcoming library renovation projects, both in Clarksburg and Chevy Chase, which are ripe and could be options, for those opportunities. So that's another part of this, and I assume that will be part of the survey and analysis, looking at space requirements as well. Great. I yield back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All really important questions, and just we'll need to come back obviously as a joint committee later this year. I know the pandemic happened, but this supply and demand study is something I've been hearing about, I think, since I started on the council. So we need to get that going. And I'm glad to hear it's out the door, but do you just, as a fine point on that one, in the other studies, are all the RFPs out for those 3 studies, compensation, cost of care, and supply and demand?
Believe all of them out. We put, I know we put one out, we put out the supply and demand initially, and we didn't get anybody who we thought was the first time, and I think it's out now for a second time. I'll get the information exactly where each of them are. In fact, I'm glad we didn't do the supply and demand study when we were originally scheduled to do it, because the pandemic would have required us to go back and revamp. Because so much has changed.
I think it's this, all things happen the right way because of, circumstances under our other control, but obviously critical component, and I appreciate you mentioning the coordination with COA. Obviously, we need to be, for them to do their role, we have to be lockstep on that. So, okay, we have next Councilmember Sales, followed by Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Sales.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw a reference to this program as an NDA, and so I see that we fund a lot of NDAs throughout the county government. I believe it was referenced that 50 were funded, and I'm not sure how those are dispersed across county government. But I was wondering if there's an organizational chart to see how this fits into the early childhood education service delivery, because I'm just trying to determine what the ECE and next we're going to be talking about the child care subsidies. So in early childhood services, and so I'm just trying to understand as a new council member how all of these entities work together. Is there a chart, organizational chart?
So we could definitely provide an org chart. So I just want to clarify, early childhood services is the program area within the service area of children, youth, and family services, housed within HHS, where this body of work lives.
Okay.
And the ECI NDA is just, it's an account. It's a bucket of money. It is an executive initiative that is overseen by the executive team, but the NDA is just a fiscal account. And in partnership with the executive team, we oversee it to do systems change efforts and reform in the areas of sustainability, affordability, and I forget what the other few are, access. So one is the actual physical government body that does the work, and then the other one is just a fiscal account with which we fund priority initiatives at the county level to transform the system.
Okay, all right. That was all. Thank you.
And you're not alone. It is. There's a lot of entities, and it takes a while to figure it out.
And what I will say that before there was a COA, this existed. So what's because I feel like I know where the brain is going. Like, how is this different from COA?
Yeah.
Those are some of the areas that we are working collaborative with COA, because there are certain systems building pieces that have to exist in government.
Yeah.
So we can't yield certain bodies of work over on the community level or cross system, like they have to stay with us. So those are some of the pieces that we're grappling with, and what Ms. Otero had referenced is we're thinking of creative ways to really bring that synergy so that they can also have access and to some of the information that we're doing with some of these great studies, but we're still plugging away at trying to unravel some of these things so that the distinctions could be a little bit more clear.
Okay, and I know that there's some concerns about staffing shortages, or are we having issues with staff turnover?
You mean at the provider level?
Yes.
Do you?
Well, at the provider level, post-pandemic, so let me back up a little bit to like in all other jurisdictions, we as government don't run any childcare. Childcare is all privately owned, either for nonprofits, for-profits, or family childcare providers. So all of the work that's done in government is supportive around the work that's done at the community level, and that's one of the uniqueness about early care and education, that these are all independent for-profits, nonprofits that run child development centers, and the support systems around them, what's in the Office of Early Childhood Services, are the training, the training requirements, et cetera. We also have the other layer, which is the state. We don't regulate child care. We don't fund, we manage some of the funding that comes from the federal government block grant through the state to the county. So it is complex, to say the least. The Office of Early Childhood Services has, for example, the infant toddler program, which, as you know, is part of supporting children with special needs, in conjunction with MCPS. So that is a partnership with MCPS. It has Head Start, and Early Head Start, but Early Head Start and Head Start are really run by community-based organizations that receive their dollars directly from the federal government. So that it is a really complex system in early care and education. So I don't know if that helps a little bit in terms of your question. So
only because I saw the 2,838 for FY24 compensation adjustments, so I'm not sure who's getting the compensation.
That would be the staffing within HHS, which is all of the supports that are in place at HHS to support child development. They're not direct service in terms of classroom for children.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
that does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. So to hop on to Councilmember Sales' points and to continue our discussion, well, first off, let me just say I'm super excited about the extra 80 seats that'll be helping to serve part of my district, and I've been really proud of that bond initiative through the state and in collaborating on making sure that gets up and running in a smooth fashion, because that's critical. You mentioned needing to have information distinguishing between licensing and operating, which is a very critical distinction. And I think that is, of course, that's information that MSDE would have within the Division of Early Child Care and should be broken out by not just by licensing versus operational, but also by type, and can be done via zip code, because no, it can. They have it. And can be done via zip code both for center care, that's private corporate center care, private religiously affiliated center care, and then family care, family center care, because those are different buckets. And, you know, it would be good to know the landscape in which we are operating here in the county and where we might be able to make part of that more robust to serve the county's growing needs. But Councilmember Sales asked some great questions and trying to tease out the distinction between your work and what the COA has to do as a complement there too. And I raise this because the authorizing legislation for the COA had some provisions in it that made it sound like they had a mandate to collect certain data that, in my view, is not something that they'll ever be able to get, right? So it puts them in a bit of a pickle, because they're trying to do their function and you're trying to do your function, and everybody's got to dovetail together. And so thank you for stating that you understood the nature of that relationship and appreciated that. But I also want to make sure, and they've heard me say this before, but there is data available at the state level that would help you to understand too what's happening with the childcare providers, and are they going to college at the same time? Are they then entering the workforce in a different place? You know, how long have they been in the workforce out of their own K-12 education before coming into working in early childcare, and where do they go to? And that data that the state has dates back to the 2007-2008 academic year. It includes both K-12, higher education, and workforce data, and includes the licensing and certification data that would be critical to your analysis. So I strongly urge that you reach out to the Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center to see how they may collaborate with you, since that data already does exist at the state and does talk to one another at the state, because of course building a complex data system would be a multi-million-dollar project that we can't afford to bear the cost of here, and since it's already existing, we should leverage those resources that already exist. So I just wanted to put that out there for all of you. Thank you.
Just real quick, totally agree. Before coming to this role in the county, I developed the strategic plan for early care and education for the county prior to the current role I have, and used a lot of that data. And so I'm well aware that exists. And as we work on a supply and demand study, that they have to mine that data. That has to be a really critical piece of that, and especially what's in the registry. I'm not always sure the registry is up to date as it should be, but the registry, which is the workforce piece, is really a critical piece of information in regards to staffing and availability of staff across the state. So you're absolutely right in terms of that. That and the enrollment data. It's not broken out the way we would like it, by age group, but the enrollment data is a really critical piece that also sits at the state level. We have already had a chance to meet with the new early childhood assistant superintendent
yep.
for early care and education. We've already met with her,
Yes.
And she is very excited about the fact that the county is both doing a supply and demand study as well as a cost of care, because the state is in the process of doing that. And as you know, cost of care is something that the feds have allowed now states to do, and very few states have taken that on. And so they're excited to working with us around that. So they're well aware that we're endeavoring in that. And I think the more folks that I invite folks on your staff to be part of that, of those consultant teams, because the more questions we have up front, the better the data that we're going to get.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
The final thing I will say is every one of these studies will raise as many issues as answer it. And
Correct.
I think that is exactly the
Yeah.
kind of work that then folks like OCA and others can pick up on and see what additional pieces we need and what it raises in terms of policy questions and advocacy questions.
Yes, and definitely anything that's done in one county, and especially in a county of our size with as much diversity as we have, then helps to inform other counties and their work. So once, it's collaborative across the board, and that's a win-win for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw another line item I had a question about, the educational scholarships to Montgomery College in Towson. Do those scholarships have a like a geographical requirement? If they take, if they receive funding from the county, are they required to take employment in the county for a certain amount of time, or are we just giving money away to train future educators for other regions?
I have to go back and check what the contract says exactly.
Okay,
I'll ask
if you
HHS to
can.
check the contracts for us exactly. But and we've been working with Montgomery College now for 4 years on these scholarships. I believe some of them may require the folks have to be employed by a child development center in the county.
Okay.
But we'll check the contracts and get back to you.
Thank you.
Great question. All right, so I think there are no other comments. I think without objection, we'll accept the recommendation, the approval of this funding level, and as a high priority on the reconciliation list. Okay. So it's child care subsidies.
Actually,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
it's not an addition. This is just the budget for.
Oh, it's carried over, yes, so
Yeah.
this doesn't need to go on the list.
Correct.
Great, even better. So we support it without objection. Okay, great.
A number of these items that the committee is going to be reviewing today are really just what's in the budget. So it's, so you understand, there's not a whole lot of adjustments on
That were
top
in the
of.
base 23 budget,
Yes.
because anything above base 23 needs to
Right.
go on the rec system.
Exactly. So there's not a whole lot of additions for these items, but they are informational, and they operate a little bit differently than some of the other items in department bases. So the next item is childcare subsidies. For fiscal year 24, the executive is recommending 1.9 million and 6 FTEs. It's a decrease of 1.4 million approximately, or 72.3% below the fiscal year 23 level. And that's due to one major adjustment, which is shifting funds from that are supporting 0 to 5 in this program to be then handled by the ECE, or attributed to the ECE NDA. So that amount is $1,435,583. That leaves for fiscal year 24, $1,241,005 to support children outside of 0 to 5. Council staff recommends approval of this shift. The NDA, certainly the scope of the NDA covers this type of expense, though council staff did want to note that, by approving this, there is going to be an overall net decrease in funding that's available for 0 to 5 in the 24 budget. However, because of all the carryover amounts that you've just heard, there is capacity to cover this particular shift. And it is important to note that there is an increasing amount of subsidy being used, which is really good. I think because of outreach efforts on part of DHHS, there's an anticipation that that use of subsidy will continue to increase, which is good because, in the past, there's been problems with spending out subsidy, partly because there have been challenges in terms of subsidy being adequate enough for families to participate. Also, the state had increased what they made available, and so this county had to shift in terms of, how we did our local subsidy program, and kind of basically increasing eligibility, increasing the level of subsidies has helped make these services accessible to families in the county.
Thank you, Ms. Yao, and thank you for explaining the decrease, but also the service. So we're not going to actually decrease services, we're going to increase services, but this is a shift that I think makes sense. Any questions on this? Without objection, we'll accept that. And just want to wait list. The question is, is there anyone on the wait list for subsidies?
We do not wait list in the county.
Yeah, correct.
And the state will wait list if they have folks beyond the allocation per county. To our knowledge, there's no wait list at this point.
Yeah. We're always wanting to make that subsidy mean more, though, obviously. But I think so. Without objection, we'll accept that shift. And I know we will be shifting up here now because we're moving to COA, right? Is there one other item?
We have one more item.
One other
before
item,
that.
okay. I'm trying to get you out of your seats faster than you should. All right, let's do that last item.
Okay, so the next item is Early Childhood Services. This is a program within Children, Youth, and Family Services. For fiscal year 24, the executive is recommending $12,794,086 and 46.83 FTEs. It's an increase of about 500,000 or 4.1% and 1 FTE above the fiscal year 23 budget level. There's one item that's proposed in this particular program for an adjustment, and that's a decrease of 25,000 to a DHHS preschool development birth to 5 grant. This particular grant was used to implement the basics in the county, and there is no anticipated service impact because the ECE NDA is able to support those services. So council staff recommends approval of that particular adjustment.
Great. Without objection, we will accept that shift as well.
Doesn't this need to go on the rec list because it's an addition?
It's a
decrease.
reduction,
Oh,
so it's
sorry.
not, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
It'll go back into the budget.
Yay!
We gave 25,000 today, let it be noted. Yeah, plus, and Dr. Bridges, I would thank you for being here, acting director. Is there anything you want to say before we?
So,
shift?
sorry, I just want to clarify. So you're not, this is just the decrease in the basic project grant? No, okay, because
So
It's
let's
just the
explain
pot of
it
money
again.
it pulls from. That's all it is. It's just not going to be pulled from the ECS budget, and it's being paid through the NDA. So there's no
just a
impact to the
shift.
program.
no, it's just a shift in funding
Yeah,
as opposed
in
to
funding source.
in funding source. And there are 46 FTEs, but isn't this adding an employee?
This is separate from the FTE piece up top.
Okay.
So Ms. Yao, do you want to restate it just so
it?
everyone's
Yeah.
clear?
Sure. The FTE and the budget is for the total ECS program. And within that program, the executive is recommending one adjustment, and that is the reduction of grant funding.
Okay.
So we're just highlighted that
That
particular
portion as a-
adjustment.
right.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And the amount of funding for Early Childhood Services is the same as last year, so.
It's-
No.
No,
It's an
that,
increase
That's
about
what-
500,000.
Yeah,
500,000,
that's-
so that needs to go on the
yes,
rec list.
that's the part that has to go on the rec.
No,
list.
no, because
No?
we're shifting it and taking it out of the NDA. Is that
Well,
correct? Or Ms.
sorry.
Lambert, okay, what do we?
The other,
The
the other,
I'm sorry.
do you want to?
The NDA is absorbing it,
Well,
basically.
No, the increase to the early childhood services program, that increase is primarily compensation adjustments,
Right.
those type of things. It's
Yeah.
not, so it's stuff that's already built in that you don't, it's not a separate budget item from
And-
the executive.
And these are items that the HHS committee is reviewing in the aggregate. We're not going piece by piece
Right.
and parsing out each multi-program adjustment within the individual programs or service areas.
I think we're good, but everything, because we've already said that the other piece needs to go on the rec list, so if this is just a subset of that we've already talked through, then
Right.
the larger item is already
Already
on the rec list.
Right,
And so we're
exactly.
This
good.
is a shift within that,
Okay,
yes.
And actually, compensation is then is being talked about as a whole within county governments. It's even outside of HHS,
Yeah.
so.
right, but with respect to the 46, you're adding one FTE, there are 46 FTEs, 46 plus already, so how many of those are vacant? Because that's not in my packet.
I don't know off the top of my head, I can get you that information. The one FTE that's being added is probably a little bit of I believe, I'm talking off the top of my head, it's a position that was wrongly located in admin maybe, and now it's in ECE. It's not a net gain of a position, it's just reallocating a position within CYF
Okay.
to the proper place. So
Okay,
that's all
but
it is.
yes, but it would still be good to know overall, within this particular bucket of early childcare services and administration, how many vacancies there are of the existing staff that we could take a look at.
Yeah, I can get that information. I think I have it with the information for this afternoon. When we
Okay,
discuss other
well, maybe we'll
CYF,
just talk
but yes.
later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, appreciate that, Councilmember Lukian. So if we please get the information, if there's something we need to do differently, I don't think there is, but we have two more
Exactly, we can bring it back to
HHA
fall.
sessions, we can clean that up, as my co-chair pointed out. Okay, so pending that information, we will move forward with that adjustment without objection. All right, Dr. Bridges.
So, good morning, Councilmember Jawando and other council members joining the joint committee session. I normally end my remarks by saying we'll get there together, but I'll start by saying we'll get there together. The Department of Health and Human Services is a person-centered, data-driven agency, and we are really taking a deeper dive into the numbers, to all the great questions that you raised this morning, last week, and I'm sure you have more questions this afternoon that are data centered. So we'll get there together. We want to provide the information and the data, and it's teamwork. Thank you.
Makes the dream work. All right, now, Ms. Yao.
So now we're moving on to the last, no, actually, it's not
No,
the last.
COA, right?
It's COA,
We are
yes.
shifting now, so we will shift. So let's have our COA folks come down. And whoever needs to stay.
Well, that's fine if you want.
Some of you are staying.
I'm
but
here.
yeah, you're still staying, yes. But we'll have,
Did you want to come?
you can, whatever you'd like to do, as long as we have room. Mr. Beverly, I see, Ms. Resnick.
I was going to say, we're going to need to get a label for Dr. Bridger's chair
Exactly.
because he's here so much, so.
And if you want any water or anything, we'll get you some water, yeah. All right. Okay, so we have our chair of the board and executive director of COA here. Good to see you, Mr. Resnick, Mr. Beverly.
Good morning.
And then I'll just have you, Ms. Yao, tee it up, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So the table at the bottom of page 9 of your packet going on to page 10 of your packet shows the fiscal year 23 amounts approved for COA to date, as well as the recommended funding proposed by the executive and what else is anticipated for COA in 24. In 24, the executive is recommending $728,387 for COA. And that includes basically a 3% increase. It's an inflationary adjustment that's been adjusted for all nonprofit service contracts. In addition, we understand at least that the funding from MCPS or the Board of Education, there was funding in their request that carries forward the $125,000 amount that has been approved for COA in 23. And then it's the $12,750,000, 3% adjustment. Council staff notes that the executive's recommended funding does not include the amount that the council just approved for COA on April 18th, which was $200,000. So again, that funding wasn't available at that time. So what's being approved for COA in 24 is less than the total amounts that they are receiving in 23 because of that special appropriation. In addition, the council received a letter from the COA board president, Mr. Beverly, who's sitting here. It's at circle 33 of your packet. And it's a letter that requests 24 funding of $1.4 million. Council staff suggests that the Joint Committee consider adding funding to the reconciliation list of $200,000, which would bring the funding up to COA based on what it is getting. It would be level funding based on fiscal year 23. The Joint Committee may want to wait before the COA to finish its strategic planning process and coming up with a work plan that is developed with input from key stakeholders before approving the full 1.4 amount, because at this point in time, these are foundational pieces of work that still need to occur, and we don't anticipate that those pieces will be done probably until the fall timeframe. So, and in any case, if whatever the Joint Committee wants to move forward with, Council staff does recommending holding a meeting once the strategic plan is done so that we can hear, what the results are.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. And just to be clear, the $200,000 that we passed a few weeks ago is part of the FY23 budget. So in that, it would not be considered, need to be added to the reconciliation list. That's my interpretation of it. because it's already approved. I'm talking about for 24. So the rule is whatever funding over the FY23 approved budget needs to go on the rec list.
I think it would need to, because it's simply not included in the executive's recommendation. So it's an extra 200,000 that, I mean, while it is fiscal year 23, I think we're basing our budget based on what the executive.
Well, I think, no, that's not, okay. It's on what we passed. And now this was a supplemental. Supplementals might be treated differently. I don't think the council president's guidance speaks to that.
Okay.
But what I would say, we should find that out.
Sure,
I don't know if this is not, I've not seen this situation before. And we're doing this differently. So,
yes.
Because obviously it'd be beneficial if it didn't have to go on the reconciliation list because it's part of the FY23 budget. Now, I could understand why some would say, well, you added it late, so it should go on. So let's just clarify that, but I just wanted to bring that up. I'll turn first to Councilmember Albanaz.
Thank you, Chair Jawando. It is a really important point, just sort of procedurally, and this is internal to the council, so we can figure that out. But we have to keep the momentum going. I appreciate the presentation that was just given, and I think Ms. Treadvan said it well during our last joint session when discussing the implementation of COA, that we are building it, and we're taking one foot in front of the other, and every day, every week, every month, the roles and the lanes will become more clear. And this particular analysis and study is going to be critical in helping to provide even more clarity on where we go from here. But I just want the COA and the team to understand that we fully support the vision that was set forward. We are committed to it. We are committed to implementing it with fidelity. We, as a council and as a body, I am so appreciative of my 6 new colleagues who all signed on to support the additional 200,000 special appropriation, and very reasonable and thoughtful questions that were asked to bring us all up to speed. And so we are going to continue to move forward and put our entire community in a better position, as well as the providers, to be able to provide the services that are so desperately needed to our children right now. So I concur with the recommendation. I'm hoping it doesn't have to go on the reconciliation list, but if it does, it will remain a high priority because we have to continue to move forward. And both committees are deeply committed to revisiting and checking in, but we do need to start thinking about, 2-3 year plans as opposed to year over year. And the 3% appropriation is helpful too. And I'm not ready for prime time, but looking to add to that as a possibility across the board. So those are going to help. And I just, again, want to make sure that you all understand that by not supporting the full 1.4, it's not because we don't believe we got to keep going. It's just given the circumstances we're in right now, we got to be tight. So just wanted to share that.
I appreciate that, and I associate myself with those comments. And as you could say, it will either be, at least from my perspective, we'll hear what other colleagues have to say, a base budget increase to include the 200, which would get you up to the 0.04, not 1.4. And then there will be inflationary increase that we are taking up for all nonprofits that Councilman Albanaz has a proposal, which would make it a little higher. And then we'll come back quickly once you all have more to share on your strategic plan and how you're going to use the money after budget. We'll go to Councilmember Lukey and then Councilmember Sales.
Thank you. And thank you for being here today. My understanding from where we left off with the supplemental appropriation was that was a one-time expenditure to help them bridge. And it was not intended to be an increase so I personally, if the extra $200,000 is to be considered in fiscal year 24, would request that be put on the reconciliation list because there were special circumstances that were articulated as to why the council was taking that action on the special appropriation. And I want to be mindful of that and not shift gears based on what was explained to us at the time that was done. I have done my best, my level best to try to help, everyone figure out which lane they are in or not in and how to maneuver forward. But, you know, we're now in a situation where the total fiscal year 23 appropriation exceeded $1 million, and they're still working on getting the strategic plan and getting that all in place, which I know needs to happen and I know will happen by the fall. But I think that we need to be very mindful of that and make sure that you all come back with that plan in place with what your deliverables will be so that we can better understand what it is that we are funding in terms of tangible product and delivery in the space, and make sure that the expenditures are being used in a way that is solely focused on the very discrete mission that you have and not expanding beyond, because then we end up having duplicative expenditures that isn't healthy for the county, right? So we need to be very clear about who is in which lane and who is handling which bucket and not duplicate work. And to make sure that we are doing so, and I know you are not a governmental agency, but with a governmental budgeting mindset as opposed to a private corporate mindset, or, you know, even some of our nonprofits, depending on their experience, may have had different experiences in what costs may be. But, you know, I look forward to seeing what is happening with your strategic plan moving forward and to that collaboration with the Department of Health and Human Services in this space, because it is critical to making sure that people have access to and know where to go in order to get that high quality early childhood care and education. With that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. And I'll turn to Councilmember Sales in one moment. I just want to, on that point, I think it would be helpful for you to, Ms. Resnick, if you, whoever would like to speak to it, but I think it's more appropriately you or the board can speak to it. That question of the 200,000, I know why we did it last year, but what it would mean for this year, next fiscal year, and why I assume your position is that of course it would need to be part of the base, but can you explain why you think it would need to be part of the base? Because that's going to be an important consideration for colleagues should it have to go on the rec list, which I think it might, depending on, I just got some additional guidance that anything above the CE's affordability has to go on the rec list. So we'll confirm that, but so I think I want to give you the opportunity to speak to it.
So first, thank you all for the unanimous vote on the 200,000. It was appreciated. And again, part of what we are, well, here's the frustration that I'll bring to this is, so we didn't have a budget at all when we started this activity. And basically, as I said when we first met, we were managing on just dollars cash on hand. So there was money sitting in the COF that just got allocated for us to use as we were trying to bring up this organization. Now, part of that is, one, the startup of it, but also understanding that work should also be getting done versus just at the end of a year saying we're here. Not satisfying to me. So our issue is just the structure of how, well, the process of how that money came to us, and that became effectively our budget when it wasn't intended to focus on all the items that were actually in the legislation. It was focused on a few bodies at the Community Foundation with a director who were and a steering committee that were giving out funds in the form of grants, which, by the way, I think the COF did a great job of working with the Community Foundation to put those dollars constructively into programs that certainly did serve our children, and use those dollars to leverage other dollars from the private side to help us actually do things like PEP, things like the what's the other one that the Imagination Library, things like the equity hubs, where, you know, there was a lot of innovation going on as to how we were going to put those dollars in play in order to actually do what you're saying, is to make sure we had programs, services for families. Because again, when we talk about children, we can't not talk about their families. They're one and the same. The other point, and Kimberly really is the expert, I'm not an expert at this, but part of the struggle I'm struggling with is this emphasis on the strategic plan. Well, I know they're important, but we have a strategic framework that's set forth in the legislation that was built on a set of documents that I supported and worked on that came from MMF. They gave us a pretty clear path to where we were trying to get to with this organization and what it would be responsible for. Part of that responsibility now lies in other places. And if you think about how, and maybe this is a reference most might not get, from my experience as a CEO of a data analysis company, one of the things that we did was what they call independent validation and verification. So basically what was going on was work and programming that's happening. And then how do you determine at different points in time whether you're not meeting an expectation or reaching the goals in a timetable that makes sense for your client? So part of what this organization's job is to make sure that all of those dollars that you put out there into the ecosystem to get these tasks and chores done are truly happening, and one that at the end of it we can say, maybe not definitively always, that it's working or it's not. But again, part of those dollars lie in organizations. Again, that's my contention. Maybe I'm new to county government and how they do budgeting, but I'm assuming that some of the dollars that exist currently and activities that exist currently, we need to have that discussion, and we're trying to collaboratively of what really does fall into this legislation's mandate into the bucket of the COA, and then how we actually execute that collaboration and make sure that we just don't have, effectively, the fox watching the hen house.
I appreciate that. And just if you could get specifically to the budget question,
Okay.
Ms. Resnick, of why do you need the extra $200,000 next year? Just very specifically to that, because I want to get that on the record, because this is the only chance you're going to get to do it other than individual meetings with council members. So when they're looking at the $200,000 on the reconciliation list, why do you need it next year? I just want you to be able to state that clearly.
Sure. So good morning, everyone. I'm Kimberly Rusnak, the Interim Executive Director of the Children's Opportunity Alliance. So the $200,000 additional funding for fiscal year 24, the Children's Opportunity Alliance will use that to continue to do some of the work that we've already undertaken. It's related to grant making, it is related to the strategic planning process, it is related to the data work that we are undertaking. Since we last met with council in March, we've reached out to both HHS and MCPS and asked them for specific data that is disaggregated related to pre-K work, related to WPA and other pieces, so that we can get a better understanding of who is being served, where they're being served, how they're being served in the community. So it's doing that data work, as well as working with the Children's Funding Project, who is going to help us in bringing on a staff member who over time will be trained to be able to do the fiscal mapping, so that one of the requirements of the legislation is that year after year we can inform you all in terms of how much public dollars and private dollars are being invested in the system of early care and education, so that we can track that data point over time and hopefully see increases in both those public and private pots of money.
I appreciate that. And I'll turn to Councilmember Sales. I appreciate the point you made, Mr. Beverly, that it wasn't a real budget. It was just what the leftover funding from COF. That's a very fair point, and I think colleagues weren't here for that. It was just kind of, let's make that their first year budget. It wasn't based on any actual budget. So that's an important point.
Just want to clarify, we were given figures from MMF about how much it would cost to start up an entity.
Yeah, roughly, to start it up, yeah.
It was less than what was moving forward in terms of the grant cycle that COF was on. So
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, there's reasons that it happened that way, but then we passed the legislation, and now we are where we are. Councilmember Sales, who's been patiently waiting.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just had a quick question about the current fund balance of COA. I know that the $200,000 was a supplemental appropriation, and just thinking about next year's funding, how I know that you asked for, it's almost double the county executive's amount. So I just wanted to know if there's anything above the $200,000 that's remaining to complete FY23 work.
So I just want to clarify. So are you asking if we need additional dollars for fiscal year 23, or you're asking why we need additional dollars for fiscal year 24? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, no, I'm just asking what the current balance is for FY23, because you asked for the 200,000 over the appropriated amount for FY23 and then double for FY24. And the strategic plan hasn't been completed yet. And I know that the 200,000 is supposed to go towards the strategic plan, correct?
The 200,000 that was appropriated for fiscal year 23, I believe can go towards the strategic planning as well as grant making or other general operations for COA.
Well, I would hope it would go towards the strategic plan so that we can justify the additional funding that's been requested for FY24. That was my understanding, and I was under the impression that you would come back sooner, as soon as that strategic plan is complete, to request additional funding, because it looks like the CE is only recommending $728,000, $728,387 for FY24.
So we are currently negotiating a contract with the strategic planning consultant who will help us, hopefully starting this month.
Okay.
And the plan is for us to have a finalized strategic plan with an action plan and an operations plan and a fundraising plan by October or November of this fall.
So again, to your point, your point about what the executive put in the budget for us. Again, I'm not sure how that number becomes our budget, but again, this was just cash on hand. This was what they had, and we were trying to figure out how to work with what they had available. So calling it a budget is a difficult concept for me, because it was, here's some money, what can you do, versus here's your mission, here's what's in this. I'm looking at a document that says I should be doing a bunch of different things. In order to do that, I'm going to have staff. And if I just add that up, I can come up to this number. Forget any programming or grant making that I'm trying to do. So again, I'm arguing for a budget that I didn't actually have. What I'm looking for 2024 is what we've notionally put together to support the staff, community engagement, and the other funds that we want to put into the community. Because I think in order to measure success from the community level, they've been used to, and I'll say that through the Community Foundation and the county government, having some dollars, having them experiment, innovate, and coming up with opportunities that they can support children. And so that's what we want to try to continue. They all don't work, but we've got some pretty good examples of those that have. And we're trying to put an RFP on the street now to give them an opportunity to ask for more dollars to continue those points in those communities.
I don't know if that's premature to start experimental programming and funding allocations to programs and nonprofits that we haven't really seen what the return on investment is. And so I think before we can appropriate more dollars, we need to see the strategic plan to see what is actually going to be conducted in the next fiscal year to really ensure that our students are, getting ready for, kindergarten. And so I think that's what the appropriation, that's why I supported it, because I do want to see what the plan is going to be, and I do want to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of how we are appropriating these funds, especially if we're requesting double the funding. I want to make sure that this money is going to organizations that are going to fulfill the mission that's outlined in Bill number 42-21, which, as you have shared, it is a very comprehensive list of duties. And I just want to make sure that you have an organized way of fulfilling those duties, because it's a lot. And I want to make sure that the strategic plan gives us all a way to better understand and support the mission of this entity.
And the primary work that we're undertaking right now is hiring our own staff. So as much as we heard challenges of hiring and the workforce in the early care and education space, we have been spending the last 2 or 3 months trying to find a diverse candidate pool who can come on and take on the work of the executive director, the work of a data analyst, the work of an early care and education specialist. So those pieces are underway.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So if I'm hearing, Councilman Sales, are you?
Well, I just have one question. I'm just not sure if that's something that should be done simultaneously. I don't know
I hear
how.
your point. I think what I'm suggesting is we're going to put, I'm hearing my colleagues, we're going to put this on the reconciliation list. The question I have for you all is, we have priority or high priority. And so
I think it's a high priority for the 200,000 or the double.
Correct. That's what we're suggesting. Okay. Are you?
And that's only for that's only for 200,000 over the county executive's recommendation, correct? And then the additional, anything else that they have been seeking, which is above and beyond that, would have to go elsewhere or as a non-recommended cut, correct?
Well, it would just be, we would be recommending they get the 840 because that's inclusive of the MCPS number, which is not, which is in their budget, which we have to deal with later in other committee.
Right.
But assuming but yes, for this budget, it would be the executive's amount. And then we would be recommending putting 200,000 as a high priority on the reconciliation list.
Right, but they had sent a separate request.
Yeah, we're not dealing with that.
That's just not going on anybody's list.
No.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's what we're proposing. Ms. Trevance wanted to make a.
I also want to confirm that the COA board has not approved an FY24 budget yet. But one of the things that I did want to say that while I know not satisfactory, it's still a big chunk of change, considering that the legislation offered no dollars whatsoever for this. I don't want to ignore that the fact that COA was still able to have 700 and change on hand to do work for startup in the first year is not a simple feat. While not satisfactory, there might be more, and COA ended up walking away with more money than what the MMF budget had initially anticipated. So I don't want us to also ignore the progress and the good work that has been permitted to happen while we are trying to explore what else is needed. I just wanted to make sure that we created space for both, because it was a lot of conversations, a lot of massaging, a lot of moving Lego pieces around to be able to do this work, and I don't want that to also go ignored.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And just a reminder that what we're proposing would get, if it gets off the reconciliation list, COA to 1.04 plus whatever the inflationary adjustments might be that we are all looking towards doing. So without objection, we will add that to the reconciliation list as a high priority. And thank COA and the department. We will come back to this, obviously, because we need to hear an update as you move forward in the late summer, early fall. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Yao, I think we have one more item, right? A couple more items.
A few more items. We're moving on now to school health and school-based mental and health services. The first item on this list is linkages to learning in school-based health centers. The executive is recommending $4,305,487 and 9 FTEs for the linkages to learning program in fiscal year 24. It's an increase of $827,666 and a level number of FTEs from the fiscal year 20.
I think you went past Head Start and pre-kindergarten.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't forget about our littles.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's not like you only have 2 things on your list. I mean, it's a big list.
Sorry. Typically, during budget, we get an update on Head Start and pre-K services, which have been, again, a big priority of the council. For 24, the executive is recommending $4,896,061 and 2.8 FTEs for the Head Start program, which is an increase of $129,621 from the fiscal year 23 level. The program is housed in administrative and support services service area in DHHS, and the increase here is all multi-program adjustments. The number of seats anticipated for fiscal year 24 is level at 648 seats. Typically we get, a lot of information about what kind of seats, whether they're full day, part day seats, and where they are, and those kinds of things, as well as a budget from MCPS in terms of, all the, how they're accounting for those programs. Council staff recommends approval of the funding that's in the county executive's budget for Head Start. But while there is update information in terms of number of pre-K expansion grant seats, number of locally funded pre-K seats, and state aid for blueprint seats, council staff recommends actually seeking some more information that we typically get during budget. And that includes kind of the breakout of those seats, the amount of funding total that includes from MCPS's budget, as well as also the number of pre-K special education services seats and budgets. In addition, there was information in the E&C packet for April 19th that suggested that the blueprint funding for pre-K is going down by about 6.9 million. And it would be helpful to understand, I mean, this may be something that the E&C committee, it was within their jurisdiction to, discuss, but it would be helpful to understand what that means for the county. And there was a statement that MSD had concluded there were no pre-K eligible providers in Montgomery County. And again, what does that mean? We had been getting a number of pre-K expansion grant providers. So I think there's like 8 or 9 of them that have been getting those funds for a number of years now. It looks like that funding from them is shifting to MCPS local funding. But again, council staff wasn't exactly clear about how that was working. So again, before we conclude the budget, it would be really helpful to get that specific information from MCPS.
Just on that point, I see MCPS folks are here. Is anyone here from on this early childhood? I don't see Ms. Yeah, could you? Yeah, come on down, because I think we need a little bit of clarification. I am used to seeing a little more robust presentation about these items. Yeah, maybe Mr. Hodge, thank you. We'll get to you in 1 second. So, yeah, if you could just explain, this is obviously level funding on the seats, which we'd always like to see us going up, but just could you give a little bit of the background that we're talking about and obviously talk about that information that Ms. Yao's mentioning of the breakdown and the funding question? Are you absorbed? What is actually happening here? Thank you.
Good morning, Nichelle Owens, Director of Title I Early Childhood and Recovery Funds. It's nice to see you all. Nichelle gave a lot of information, so I'm going to try to go in and explain some of it. Regarding pre-K and the blueprint, it is correct that our funding has decreased. That's not a topic that I can explain fully, but even with that decrease, we are able to continue to fund the current seats that we have. So we are very pleased about that.
So first important point, the state gave us less money for this function, but we're not cutting the number of seats.
That is correct.
Okay, great.
Next up is the pre-K expansion grant application was released, I believe on April 11th. So that does give us an opportunity to apply for additional seats. We anticipate applying for anywhere from 40 to 60 seats for MCPS, and of course
those would be seats for next
for
year.
FY24. That's correct.
Okay, and you're going to apply for those later this month or this next month.
Right now, we're writing it as we speak.
Good. Okay, great. All right.
Absolutely. And we do have 7 pre-K expansion partners in the community. We look forward to increasing the number of partners. We do understand that some of them have gone through Montgomery College for additional credentialing. Therefore, that would make them eligible to apply for the pre-K expansion grant. And we are supporting our existing partners with the application And throughout the year, we've provided technical assistance and support, as is outlined in the MOU.
Okay.
I hope that answers most of the questions.
That's helpful as a start, I think.
All right.
Yeah. And turn to Councilmember. Do you have anything to say on this one? Councilmember Lukey.
Just to clarify, so it's my understanding that all the funding for the pre-K programs through the blueprint are going to go through the local education agency statewide, and that it's not, is that your understanding, that that goes to the LEA, not to any, so each county may have a different way they go about it, right? But for consistency's sake, at the state level, it goes out just to the local education agencies.
Thank you for that question. That's not my understanding.
Okay.
My understanding is that MCPS applies for its seats and supports our pre-K provider partners in applying for their seats, and they receive their money directly. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
So that it can go either way. Both the LEA and individual providers are able to apply for those grants.
That's correct.
Okay. So there's not a specific allocation that's done annually based on meeting certain criteria. You have to apply every year. Is that right?
You do have to apply for the pre-K expansion grant, which is separate from the actual blueprint funds.
Okay. And was there any reason given for why they were not recognizing the number of providers that are here actually working in that space? Is it a certification issue where there's a mismatch of some kind between requirements and what we have available?
Are you referring to the statement in the packet?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I am not sure about the source of that statement.
Okay. Ms. Yao, do you know?
I don't. We can follow up for sure. I just got it from the earlier packet, so it was kind of a surprise to me. But we'll circle back and make sure we get accurate information.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to know, like, both different avenues that these providers are able to get the grant funding from, and a very clear statement of what the criteria is for it and where we may be having a mismatch that results in potentially less funding within Montgomery County than what we think we should be able to get through that grant process. That would help everybody sort of set expectations moving forward and know how best to apply. And nobody wants to leave any money on the table that's available, right? So as a local government, we need to do our best to reach out and take that so we can serve our residents. Thanks.
Thank you. And yes, that I couldn't agree more. We need to be clear on that and come back to that point. But I think in the interim, if I understand the assignment here, $129,621 would need to go on the reconciliation list as a high priority, or would it not?
Actually, again,
or is it absorbed
these are
again?
multi-program adjustments.
Perfect.
So they're going to be taken
in the NDA or in the larger
in the
HHS
larger
discussion.
context of the budget. So
Got it. Okay, so we
committee
just
doesn't-
need to approve it, and there's no reconciliation list. Without objection? Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think now it's school-based health and mental health services.
Yep. I think I'll repeat myself.
Yeah, come on back, Mr. Harris.
The executive is recommending $14,305,487 and 9 FTEs for the Linkages to Learning program in fiscal year '24. It's an increase of $827,666 level number of FTEs for the fiscal year '23 approved budget. There's two adjustments, and they actually span both Linkages to Learning in CYF as well as school health services in public health services. But it's to provide somatic health services and expanded contractual services through Linkages to the South Lake School-Based Health Center that is new for '24. So there's two amounts. One is $185,356, and that's to provide one school nurse and one school health tech to the school-based health center. And then there's also $409,713 to increase expenses for the Linkages to Learning program at that center. So council staff recommends both of these increases as high priorities, as there is a lot of need in that community. And for the committee's information, there's service data and needs assessment results for linkages that are attached at circles 18 and 19 of your packet.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. Obviously, we took a big step last year with Councilman Navarro's leadership and all of us supporting the expansion of these school-based health and wellness centers to all of our schools. Linkages, obviously, all these programs are connected and intertwined, and so I think we want to continue that effort. And so I would certainly agree with adding these as high priorities, given the needs there. Any comments from colleagues? Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. So there was something that I was working on at the state level, and I know Dr. Bridgers knows I was very passionate about this. It died in the newly named EEE committee on sine die. Didn't make it out of committee, but it was with respect to allowing students to be able to participate in telehealth appointments on school grounds. And one of the ongoing concerns, of course, we need these wellness centers, we need these services, but they aren't for everyone, and yet there are other obstacles to low-hanging fruit, if you will, about policy adjustments or adaptations that could be done in order to serve a broader swath of the population, because the mental behavioral health crisis and preventive medicine issues don't affect just one population. This is an across-the-board problem and concern that we need to deal with within our school communities, which are, of course, just a microcosm of the overall community. So I'm just putting my plug in one more time to try and push MCPS to make adaptations to better facilitate access to services across the board for all students who need those services, as opposed to carving up so many different niche buckets, and then that's how people fall through the cracks. So just wanted to put that out there.
It's an important point, and something we've been talking about in E&C is, you need different levels of intervention, and not everyone needs medical care. For example, not everyone needs a full-out psychologist. Some can just need therapists, help, someone to talk to, mentorship, all that. And so couldn't agree with you more, and thank you for your advocacy around that bill. Any other comments from colleagues on this? So I think, Ms. Yao, we will accept the staff recommendation to place this on the high priority reconciliation list.
There is one other item.
Get your mic.
There's another item in Linkages to Learning that council staff summarized in your packet. It's not specifically a change in the budget, but the council received a lot of testimony about changes in staffing with contracts delivering Linkages services. Apparently, because of the blueprint funding, schools that were identified as high need got school coordinators through the blueprint funding. And when it overlapped at Linkages sites, because Linkages sites also had site coordinator, community school coordinators there. So the function, there was some overlapping functions with those two positions. And consequently, council staff understands that in rebidding or RFPing out the Linkages services, because that happens periodically, there was a decision to at the sites that have both coordinators to use, instead of the coordinator funding, to use that funding for mental health services, additional mental health services, so that, again, you wouldn't have that overlapping function. There was a lot of testimony that the council received, supporting those positions that are provided by the nonprofits. And so council staff just highlighted that in your packet. DHS is here in case the committees have any questions about that.
Yeah, I think it's worth spending a minute or two just allowing you to explain the rationale. We did hear a lot from folks at schools and others about this issue. And then I would just add kind of a related issue of something we've talked about also in E&C is the caseload of counsel, what counselors are asked to do, and whether they're able to actually attend to some of these needs because of the functionality of the job. And that's something that has come up too. So, Ms. Treadvance, I think you. Yeah.
I would like to yield the floor to my colleague Kirsten Anderson, who oversees this program and is the full-blown expert on any questions you might have.
All right. No pressure.
Awesome, wow. Kirsten Anderson, Administrator for Linkages to Learning and School and Community Youth Services with HHS. So yes, in the process, excuse me, we have been working with MCPS. So through the Blueprint funding, MCPS has full-time community school liaison positions and a very robust community school program and supervision through MCPS. And so in looking at the RFP process, most of our schools ask for more mental health services. We know that we are in a mental health crisis. And so really looking at the allocation of resources, that it made the most sense to, since all of those schools have a full-time community school community school liaison who is doing community school coordination, that it did not make sense for DHHS to fund that position any longer and to take those funds and put them into, as I said, therapy and or case management, whatever that school is needing most at that site. So to be very clear, we were not removing community school coordination from any site. It was only, let's reallocate those funds so that we can put them towards what HHS, again, our expertise in the mental health and the case management aspect of it, and continue to work very closely with MCPS as their community school liaisons. And so we are in meetings with MCPS about that process, about how to do the transition, about how to make sure that the linkages team is integrated with the MCPS community school liaison, so that none of the services that our HHS funded community school coordinators have been providing, all of that information is going over to MCPS so those services can all continue.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the explanation. Councilmember Lukey.
Just a quick question, because I know, so the position of what once was called the mental health services coordinators that every school system was required to get after the passage of the Safe to Learn Act in 2018, the Blueprint changed that language, renamed them to behavioral health services coordinators, and moved them under, away from the Maryland Center for School Safety and back under the State Department of Education. So how are the different coordinators, both the community school coordinators and of course the other mental health oversight services folks in the different school buildings themselves, working with the county's behavioral health service coordinator at MCPS in order to connect and make sure that everybody's ticking off their statutory obligations, because there's a lot of them. They do overlap, but it's intended to be a coordinated effort. So if someone could speak to that.
So that's a question that seems more suitable for MCPS because they could speak a little bit more about how the inner workings of that happens within their system. But I don't know if Kirsten, from the outside in, if you have anything you'd like to add.
I don't mean our coordination has been with the community school coordination aspect of it, and as I said, very close coordination for that.
Okay.
Not so much on the other.
Yeah, I ask only because they are tasked legally with coordinating with the local departments of social services, the local behavioral health providers, and so there's this whole system and network laid out within there, and yet if that's only happening way up here and it's not reaching out appropriately, or there's a disconnect in folks understanding who's doing what function. Again, these are complex issues and a multitude of different services and sectors that need to be attached together in order to best serve the students and their families. So that'll definitely be something we can raise directly with MCPS.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will follow up on that in ENC as well. Thank you. So, Ms. Xiao, nothing to do here, just you're noting an important issue. Okay, thank you very much. So I think next is school health services.
Yes, for fiscal year 24, the executive is recommending $38,444,518 and 333.37 FTEs for school health. It's an increase of about 2.3 million and 1.88 FTEs from the fiscal year 23 level. The increase is categorized as multi-program adjustments. The one item that council staff highlights in your packet is around vacancies. And school health services is like a couple other programs in DHHS, which has a significant number of vacancies. It's not surprising. I think we've all heard, at the local as well as national level about the shortages of nurses, et cetera. So as of March this year, school health had 40 vacancies, and only 4 positions have been vacant more than a year, though. And of those 40 vacancies, 20 were school health technicians, 16 were community health nurses, and 2 nurse manager positions. So council staff just, highlights that the Joint Committee may be interested in discussing strategies for recruiting and retaining these, very important mandated positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Dr. Bridges wants to speak, and then I'll turn to Councilman Robbins. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council Member and Chair. Jawando, just want to set the framework for our ongoing ability to really assess the attrition rate with our school health nurses and our local, our health room techs. Mr. Hodge will go into more detail regarding his ingenuous ability to really think outside the box to recruit staff, to retain staff, and to place staff. It's been 4 years since we've looked at this process, and it's an ongoing challenge. The pandemic didn't bring any wealth, because as soon as we started to have the wavelets and the decrease, we saw our staff retiring because they were tired, and they're still tired. So I'm going to ask them to go into more detail, but I just wanted you to get a sense of the level of effort and the work that we continue to do across the Department of Health and Human Services. We have about 300 vacancies, but during this calendar year, we have reduced those vacancies by about 39%. Now that's unaudited, but it just gives you a snapshot of the work that we continue to do to fill those spaces that were filled with contract staff that we backfill, but really look at the therapists, the nurses, the behavioral health workers that we really need in the Department of Health and Human Services. So I just wanted to frame that contextually so that you can see the great work we continue to do across all our service areas.
I appreciate that. And as we turn to you, Mr. Hodge, just of these, if you could explain, 40 vacancies of what's the number throughout the system that we have, so we have a sense of the scale. And has that number changed at all since March? Obviously, these are frontline, getting the somatic and physical, and leading to the making recommendations to the other mental health services. Like, these are critically important positions. I know you know that. So for our students and their families. So if you could just speak to, is that number still accurate, and what's it out of in the strategies, and how you're approaching working with the school system to reduce it?
Sure. Mark Hodge, I'm the Senior Administrator for School Health Services in HHS. So the number has decreased. In fact, today we have 14 new staff starting, 10 school health room techs and 4 nurses. We seem to be having retirements and people resigning frequently, much more frequently than I had hoped. But they're tired, and they're frustrated, and they never got a break during COVID. The benefit of us having 400 staff people who are public health employees, not school system employees, in school health, is we could repurpose them to work in the testing and the vaccination clinics for the past 2 years. So they didn't get a break, and they were at front lines during the most stressful time in our county in recent history. So going back to school, it's not just putting on Band-Aids, as all of you know. It is working with students with diabetes. It's continuing to do COVID testing. It's continuing to deal with food allergies and giving EpiPens. And now Narcan is being administered more frequently than we would like in the schools. And so all of those things are causing a toll on our staff. not just the nurses, but also the techs. And they're not the youngest group of people who are working working in the county either. So, and that's a nationwide issue that the age of nurses is higher. The median age of nurses is higher than anyone would like, because we know that they can all retire fairly soon. The other piece of this, and it's something that we will continue to work on, is we cannot compete with the hospitals for pay. We can compete from a benefits perspective. We don't work evenings or weekends like they do in the hospitals, but from a pay perspective and the ability for them to recruit using a variety of means that is not accessible to us in county government. That being said, I have made some adjustments to the way we recruit and the type of person that we are willing to hire. Prior to me beginning in this position about 18 months ago, we would only take nurses with specific experience and a certain number of years of experience. And they had to have a bachelor's of science in nursing. Since that time, we've lowered the expectations. An AA prepared nurse, somebody who's graduated from Montgomery College, for example, in nursing, is now eligible to apply and can be hired by us. We have 18 interns from the University of Maryland Shady Grove School of Nursing this semester, so that's a new thing for us as well, to have interns, and we took as many as we possibly could, because the other thing that we are just now implementing is being able to underfill the nurse positions. All of our nurses are community health nurse 2s, which means they have a certain level of experience. We are now able to underfill with new grads as a community health nurse 1. The pay is a little bit lower, but we've also started a residency program, and we're hoping that our efforts with the interns over this semester, and I think 11 of the 18 are actually graduating next month. So we have really reached out in encouraging them to apply. We've also worked with the professors at University of Maryland and the mentors there at the School of Nursing to assist us with that. So we're expecting that to help as well. So for every 4 nurses we're hiring, 2 people are resigning. So it's not like we're kind of even staffing, but it is slowly whittling away at those vacancies. So as I said, we have 4 nurses starting today. We have another 4 nurses starting next month. That's the other thing we've changed. We used to only do 3 orientations a year. Now we're doing them every single month. It's exhausting for our managers to do that, but they know it's even more exhausting for the managers and myself to be covering schools when there's no nurses there. And so the fact that I'm an RN allows me to go into the school and be a school nurse, which is how I started my career here in Montgomery County, but it's not sustainable. And so whatever we have to do to get those vacancies filled, we are doing it now. The long-term vacancies that you noticed, we've repurposed those school health room tech 2 positions into year-round school tech positions. That has also helped tremendously in our ability to retain staff, is now that the techs who are not well paid generally, just because they happen to be a lower grade, being paid for 10 months was also not helpful. Now that we have 59, and thank you, Council, for this last year, we have 59 year-round tech positions. Those are all filled they almost immediately as soon as we put it out for the techs. They all applied and were able to get that. But those 4 vacancies that were over a year, we repurposed our school health room tech 2 positions and made them into, which was cost neutral, into a year-round tech 1 position. So that also it increases our ability to retain those staff. And typically we're using them anyway over the summer for summer school, and so this just allows us to pay them for a year-round position. So we're doing lots of things. We are participating in the county job fair next week. This week, tomorrow, soon. We're also are changing the way we're looking at recruiting and hiring our school health room tech staff, which was it took a lot of time, and we were seeing attrition from the time they applied to the time they were hired, because they have to go to OMS, because they have to have a background check, because they have to do several steps in between. each time we were losing people. And so we would get 100 applicants and only be able to hire 5 by the time that 6-month period happened. So for the first time, today, the position has been opened. People who will apply will all be invited on January 10th to Dennis Avenue Health Center to be interviewed, fingerprinted, get their OMS check, and get an offer letter all on the same day. And it's a Saturday. And so people who have to work during the day, and which has also been a difficult thing for us to get them in during the day when they already have jobs. So we're offering this on a Saturday, and we'll do the regular process as well for those who can attend on that Saturday. But we're doing everything so they can walk in the door as an applicant and walk out the door with an offer letter, all in the same day. So we're trying everything we can possibly do to fill our vacancies. It is difficult to run school health with all those vacancies. We are using maximum temporary staff, which is not always great. They don't have the training that we are able to offer our merit staff, and they're not committed to the positions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hodge. It's very clear there's a lot going on.
There is.
And you're doing a lot to address it. Give us the number of those 11 interns. We'll split it up and call them and make sure that they, at this joint committee to make sure that they know how much we appreciate them and want them to stay in Montgomery County. I'll turn to Councilmember Alvarez and then Councilmember Luque.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Just on a lighter note, I think Dr. Bridgers referred to you, Mr. Hodge, as a genius. So I noticed in those comments. Yes, ingenious. But I appreciate those efforts, and I just want to uplift this work once again. Our school health nurses are unsung heroes. They are on the front lines, and the scope of their work, as you enumerated, has significantly increased since the beginning of the pandemic. They are dealing with things on the front lines that 10, 15, 20 years ago were almost unimaginable. And then you add to that the needs of our special needs students, which are often supported by our school health nurses as well, which adds to the stress and the inability to be in 5 different places at once. But we ask them to be in 5 different places at once. So we are going to have to, in addition to all of what you enumerated, which is impressive, we are going to have to look at salary and compensation, because you're right, we won't be able to compete directly with our hospitals, and there are some additional benefits that we can provide based on the predictability of the schedules, but we still, it's a key position, and it's connected to mental health. It's connected to so much else that we've been focusing on, and they are key cogs within schools. You talk to any principal, and they will talk about the importance of the school health nurses and the actual administration of the overall school environment. So they develop relationships with these students that are key, and often make referrals to community-based organizations, linkages, and many other organizations. So all that to say, we need to continue the efforts that you've talked about. I know the previous council, and I'm sure this council, is fully committed to doing that and seeing what we can do to support these incredible professionals. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Councilmember Luque.
First off, I just want to say a huge, huge thank you for all the things you're doing to be creative about how you're hiring, how to manage the issue that's before you, because it is a substantial one, and it's one that's not just present in the school nurse role, but throughout nursing, as our hospitals are struggling with keeping staff there directly in the hospital, and they're pooling by saying, well, I can work for X medical system and be a floating nurse and make more money and go around. So, not to mention the contractual workers, and you spoke to that. So I certainly appreciate that, and I'm really excited about the intern program. One other piece is, are we getting recruiting from the Academy of Health Professions program at Paint Branch High School? So are we able to help recruit school nurses and those to serve the school community from our school community through existing programming that we have in our signature programs?
Yes, actually, I've had several conversations now with MCPS about their medical professionals classes at Paint Branch and at Wheaton. Both, they are perfect pipelines for us for the school health tech positions because many of them are in a certified nurse's aide class in those schools, and so it makes perfect sense for us to be able to utilize them and start as interns because they have to have a certain number of clinical hours that we're going to be able to offer. So starting this fall, we will be doing that, and so when they graduate, they can also apply and become school health room techs. We're also looking at now something similar to some other programs are doing is to offer scholarships at Montgomery College or University of Shady Grove through school health services that will allow them to come back to us to pay us back as an opportunity as well. So we are looking at every possible choice we can, but absolutely using the students at MCPS to help us as a pipeline.
Super. And then my other question is with respect to the contractual services that I know have had to be utilized just to help make sure we've got people in place. You know, I am aware even just from one incident with my own, you know, a field trip that I was helping to chaperone where the contractual nurses who were supposed to be going on the field trip never showed up. And so the question was, are we going to now have to cancel this field trip after we've loaded the kids on the buses and nobody's coming? And thankfully, we ended up having 2 parents who'd taken the day off who were nurses. And they were briefed, and we had a brief delay, but they were able to step in and fill that role. But in terms of contract management and with, again, as you mentioned, they don't necessarily have the same vested interest in the community, but how are we able to engage in an oversight function with them to say, thank you, but now you're breaching the contract, and deal with the entity that provides them in order to recover?
The example you gave is an MCPS contractual issue, not an HHS. MCPS does all of the private duty nurses. So those who have special needs or the young diabetics, things like that require one-on-one nursing, that all is done by MCPS. But as you can imagine, the shortage of nurses that we find, it's the same thing for the agencies or for the private duty nurses in MCPS. And so our school health nurses do our best to cover. We can't remove them from the health room to go on a field trip, but we do a lot of when someone doesn't show up. We will go do the tube feedings, or we will go do the medication administration until that person can be replaced. But it is not just on a MCPS side, but certainly from our perspective of the Maxim agency nurses that we use. We have a high standard of expectations from them. So if they're not meeting those expectations, I can call up Maxim and say, this is their last day, and they will not be returning the next day. Even though we provided them tons of training, maybe they were there for 3 days, but if they're not going to make it, they don't. So that there is some flexibility that happens with that. The good news is today, or this week is the last week for 2 of our Maxim nurses because we've hired 4 more. And so we are slowly also whittling that down as well. So it is not my intention to ever want to use agency nurses because it's so much better when we can have our own staff on board. And so as quickly as I can make that happen, it's certainly my intention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. I think, speak for colleagues, without objection, we'll accept the high priority for this item and just underscoring how important it is and appreciate all the work that's going into this. All right, we're going to be done in 10 minutes, so let's do high school wellness centers.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Here we go.
The next 2 items are really more for informational purposes. These are programs that are within other programs and, in the Children, Youth, and Families and actually public health services budget. So high school wellness centers for fiscal year 24 includes $8,151,571 to continue operations at the 6 high school wellness centers that we have in the county right now that provide comprehensive somatic health, mental health, youth development, and other social support services. The table on the top of page 15 of your packet shows the breakout between the various centers, also between the programs that are supporting those services. And there is also data on demographics as well as student services that, that's attached to your packet at Circle 28.
Thank you. As we stated when we started, these wellness centers, it's an important project, and we got to keep the progress going. So unless there's any comment from colleagues, Councilmember Sales.
I just had a quick question because I know we're trying to expand the wellness centers to all of our high schools. I believe at the last joint committee session, we talked about developing a priority list based on determining need, and just wanted to know, oh, the list will be here by September. Thank you. Okay.
That's that great packet from Ms. Yao. Yes, Ms. Yao. So without objection?
Yeah. The next item is high school cluster projects. For 23 and 24, the budgets are broken out in the tables at the bottom of page 15 of your packet. For fiscal year 24, the executive is recommending $976,649 in the HHS county government budget to support the Kennedy, Springbrook, Paint Branch, and Watkinsville cluster projects. And there is, again, information on outcomes at Circle 20 of your packet.
Appreciate that. Any comments from colleagues? Okay, so without objection, we accept that as well.
Okay, and the last item for this particular packet is on partnerships for 24. The executive is recommending $6,541,318, 14 FTEs for the Child and Adolescent School and Community-Based Services Program. It's a decrease of $148,684, or 2.2%, and 1 FTE from the fiscal year 23 approved budget. The program provides coordination, planning, implementation of key interagency initiatives. A number of the services are provided through contracts delivered through community-based partners, and a list of those contracts is attached at Circle 22 of your packet. There is one item that the executive is recommending a reduction, and that is to adjust the George B. Thomas Senior Learning Academy contract based on the number of children served. The reduction is $560,337. It's a 50% decrease to the contract for George B. Thomas. There has been testimony that the councilors received requesting that this amount not be taken. The council staff understands that program enrollment has not surpassed more than 28% of the contract minimum for the first half of fiscal year 23. DHS reports that the amount that was reduced was calculated to allow the program to retain enough infrastructure to be able to serve what it hopes will be an increasing number of students in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. I know I heard that testimony and returned to Councilmember Lukey and then Councilmember Sales. I've volunteered in this program. I've seen it up close and personal. There is certainly need for the services. And obviously everyone saw a decrease. We just talked about that earlier because of the pandemic, with certain services that are still ramping back up. So I'm inclined to try to not accept this full decrease, but want to hear what colleagues have to say. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. So I would like to move to put this back and put it on the reconciliation list because the data that you have was just through December 31st of 2022, which is the first half of 2023, but that doesn't match when the first semester ends at MCPS. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the light bulb sometimes does not go off that I need additional support until you've gotten your semester grade, because if you talk to any of the kids in the high school, they go, well, it doesn't really matter what my quarter grade was, it matters what my semester grade was, right? So then you don't know that till come the end of January. And so sometimes as they're inching closer to that end of semester date, they start showing up in January. And so this is really important. It's a great program, and it is part of the larger overall objective of helping to bridge learning loss and make sure we are re-engaging and reinstituting positive work habits for our students. So I would support putting this back on the rec list.
Thank you. Just to be clear, are you saying put the entire amount back on? Is that your recommendation?
The 400,000. Yep.
Okay. That's a motion. Is there a second? Okay, second from Councilmember Sales. And Councilmember Sales, I know you wanted to speak too.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So my daughter also benefited from this program. It's been an incredible opportunity to relearn the curriculum in a smaller environment, and you get one-on-one training with volunteers. Not even sure what the compensation is for these educators who participate in this program, but I am glad that there is consensus to restore the funding to ensure that our students get as much support as they need to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales. Council Co-Chair Albernon.
Thank you. I think Mr. Hill's testimony was outstanding, and his comment that if we had to create a new program, it would look like this. So why are we going to create a new program? So, and he's right, we got to keep the momentum going. There's a lot of infrastructure here, and so it's going to be tough to do the full amount, but we should at least try. And so it needs to be part of the conversation. So I totally concur with the motion.
I know
Ms. Treadvance, you wanted
Yes.
to speak to this.
So thank you so much. I'm so glad to see that you all believe in this program as much as we do. I do want to but just sort of highlight that in the testimony, there were very clear, concrete structural issues and reasons beyond the provider's control as to why the underperformance that goes beyond what all tutoring programs were impacted by, right? That had to do with the program funded by MCPS, that it's sort of running a parallel track. So I just wanted to put a pin on that as well, because on our end, as we're looking at performance, that's one of the huge areas that's impacting the provider's ability to perform, and it goes beyond our control. So it consistently demonstrates, there are, all of that to say is that there are reasons in the landscape beyond the provider's control as well, that are connected to the underperformance. And I just wanted to, we don't have to talk about this now, but think of how do we balance, strike the right balance between, you know, funding a program that we know works, that is needed, but the numbers are not reflected because the landscape is in a very different place. That puts us as government and as oversight to run programs with good outcomes, with taxpayer dollars. It puts us in a weird predicament, right? Because we know the program works, there's a huge need, but at the same time, for reasons beyond everyone's control, the impact is not looking like it's there. So I would love to discuss with you offline on ways on how we could strike the right balance going forward for this program and possibly others as well, because I'm sure we'll be
Absolutely. You know, one of the focuses we're going to have in ENC, and obviously this is, and maybe possibly even with the Joint Committee, is this out of school time discussion and how it connects to tutoring. We had a session on tutoring in ENC, and so it's something we're going to come back to. And obviously the effectiveness and being most effective, we know there's a need, but getting students there, making sure it's delivered, the structural concerns you mentioned, I understand. I want to go to Councilmember Mink, and then I have a suggestion. Councilmember Mink.
I concur with my colleagues on this. That was some of the most compelling testimony that we heard, in my opinion. And, you know, as we're working to increase transparency and accountability and make sure that we're funding programs that work, I want to acknowledge that, you know, that they have worked to collect data that demonstrate the success of their programming, and that should be not just rewarded, but that is where we get good bang for our bucks. And I appreciate what you just said about how that there are circumstances beyond their control that impact the outcomes here, but what they're doing, as we know, is working, and so now is not the time to be reducing funding.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales, did you want to speak?
Yes,
go ahead.
Just quickly, we're no longer funding the study bubbles that were funded during the pandemic?
You mean the equity hubs?
I'm not sure. I just know we had. Were they the equity hubs? Yeah. So we're no longer funding those in FY24. Okay. So hopefully we'll be able to talk more about the other programs that you're mentioning so that we can, you know, get a full understanding of what is being available and how we can also work with MCPS to increase awareness about these programs that are available free of charge to our students all across the county. And so I just want to make sure that MCPS is also doing their due diligence to advertise the tutoring and support programs that are available. And if there's any way we can help as well, that would be helpful to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales. So I'm going to suggest to colleagues that we break the funding up to 2 tranches of 200,000 and put it as high priority. And then just knowing we've got lots of balance, but hopefully that will provide some level of increase and be responsive to some of the comments we've heard from HHS, and we all want to make sure we're funding effective programs. We understand that. So, Dr. Bridges, are you seeking to say something?
Yes, thank
okay,
you,
go ahead.
Council.
So just hold on one second.
Sure.
So without objection, is that, we okay with that? 200,000? Okay. So 200,000 restoring in 2 tranches, restoring the full amount, but put it in 2 tranches of 200,000 each for high priority. Yes, Dr. Bridges.
In addition to the evaluation strategies that Ms. Treadvance referenced in her comments, regarding our great partners that we have in the community, the other strategic initiative that we've been talking about across the Department of Health and Human Services is really looking at capacity building assistance for our community-based grants. Many of them have challenges with reporting evaluation data, or data in general, and this could impact the funding or the recommendations that we have. So we really need to increase and strengthen our community support. It's really a strength-based initiative that we're pushing for under the Department of Health and Human Services. So while we have these conversations, we really need to think about strength and resiliency.
Absolutely, and look forward to working with you on that. I think we are in agreement on that completely. Ms. Xiao, anything else?
Just the second packet, we can get through that really quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. The CIP related?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, let's move to that quickly,
Okay.
yes.
So. Okay.
No, go ahead.
The
Keep going.
executive is recommending 2 amendments to the CIP. The first one is for the school-based health and linkages to learning centers project, and the executive is recommending $850,000 to that project to build a linkages to learning suite at Greencastle Elementary School. It's associated with major school construction of the project. And the expenditures will go between fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 26. The requested appropriation for 24 is $529,000, and the amount is in GEO bonds.
Without objection, I think we all think that should move forward.
Okay, and the second item is, again, high school wellness center and expanded wellness services project. The Joint Committee discussed that in March after receiving an amendment for that project. And what the Joint Committee had decided was to maintain the capacity of the amounts programmed in the PDF, but to take out the specifically named projects and request that a comprehensive analysis be completed. And we understand that that will be available by, I think, the September timeframe. But in addition, we've received just another amendment after signing die because the county received $1 million of state aid. So that amendment has come over, and that's before the committee.
We love appropriating state aid. Thank our state partners, and without objection. Yes, we'll move forward.
Okay, and then that's it.
And I think Co-Chair Albanaz has an announcement about HHS.
Yeah, just logistical announcement. We're going to start HHS at 1:45, not 1:30, to give us a little bit more of a break. We, of course, are going to be on the 7th floor. Thank you.
And with that, we thank everybody, and we are adjourned.